Hello, everyone, and welcome to this week's conversation on the YouTube Creators Hub podcast. Dusty here, the host of the show, as always, joined today by Mark Lewis from Mark Lewis Fitness, or Mark Lewis over on YouTube. Mark has 325,000 subscribers as the recording of this video, just over 450 videos uploaded, and he's built a very, very active fan base and community over on his YouTube channel. I've watched a handful of his videos and am extremely intrigued about asking him about his growth and journey thus far. Mark averages anywhere from 80 to 200, 300, 400,000 views per video on his channel. So Mark, how you doing today?
Yeah, very well, thanks. Thanks for having me on.
Absolutely. And as you can probably tell, our accents are slightly different, so we're geographically not from the same place. But Mark, where are you from?
I'm from the UK. In fact, I'm from Reading. So if anybody needs to place that geographically, I am basically down the road from where Ricky Gervais used to lived. So there you go. Me and Ricky are, well, we'd be neighbours if he hadn't got rich and moved.
Yeah, that's how I love to remember things is by where either people live or landmarks. So Ricky Gervais, I love that. That's wonderful. So tell me about the YouTube channel, the origin story, how this whole thing started from start to finish. Like, give me the whole thing of how the Mark Lewis YouTube channel started.
Sure. So at the end of 2018, beginning of 2019, I had gone on a motorcycle ride around Africa with my wife. We hired a couple of bikes and just went touring on our own around the desert. And it was something that I'd done a couple of years before in 2016 on my own. And I'd filmed it with some little GoPro Hero session cameras, which I've still got actually behind me. And I thought what I was filming at the time was incredible and epic and cinematic. And I got home and it was rubbish. It was just kind of cameras bolted to my head looking at desert. It was very boring. So when I went back, my plan was to try and do something a bit cleverer, I suppose. And so I started watching YouTube for inspiration. I'd never used YouTube for anything other than tutorials on how to fix my dishwasher prior to that. So I had I should add, I'm 50 years old. So my YouTube use was probably consistent with most old men. So I started watching Casey Neistat videos actually, because one of my kids said to me, you should watch this guy. He's a good storyteller. So I watched his stuff and I thought, okay, I get it. I need to be talking to camera. I need to be getting off the bike and I need to be kind of doing stuff. It can't just be boring helmet cam stuff, because unless you are a kind of Red Bull downhill world champion, just slapping a camera on your head is just boring.
Mm-hmm.
So off I go. I film it. I come back. I make those videos. I stick them up on the YouTube channel, which has got, I had no idea how to create a YouTube channel. My kid created it for me. I didn't know anything about filming or editing. I bought an iMac pretty much the day I got back from Africa. The camera I bought the day before I went to Africa. The plane journey to Africa, I was reading up how to edit because I didn't know what cut, paste. I mean, I knew nothing. Mm-hmm. So I learned it all, made those 2 videos, stuck them on YouTube. Really as a means of family and friends watching them. And so I went into 2019 with these 2 videos and absolutely nothing else on the channel. And that was probably how it would have stayed, except it just kind of felt like there was something I could be doing with it. I had a kind of creative urge. I worked in financial services, which I'd worked in since I was about 20 in the late 90s. And that's very uncreative and a pretty horrible industry. It kind of is what the Wolf of Wall Street portrays it to be. And some people probably now thinking that sounds amazing, but it wasn't all great. So I wanted to do something creative. So I started filming the Spartan sort of mud runner kind of events. I was doing obstacle course races and stuff I was doing for fitness and stuck those up. And they started to get a few more views, but nothing very exciting. And it kind of plodded on like that. I didn't really know what I was doing. Occasionally I'd put these videos up and nobody really watched them. And then we got to the pandemic, so 2020, I was bored, nothing to do. So I bought an exercise bike. I'd never ridden the bike before, since I was a kid. And I started riding this exercise bike in my garage. And I put those videos up online and suddenly 200 or 300 or 400 people would watch them, which at the time was mind-blowing because I didn't know what even 400 people looked like in one space. So I thought, oh my goodness, I'm a YouTuber all of a sudden. And And then I kind of got into a bit of a rut where during 2000 and 2001, the channel grew very slowly. I mean, it went from 0 subscribers to a few thousand. But the trouble is, when you're brand new, a few thousand seems like an astronomical number. Yeah, when you go from 10 and you know that's, you know, your mum who's signed in twice and 8 mates, to suddenly 1,000, you're suddenly thinking, goodness me, this is now strangers that I don't know. That these are people I haven't told to join. So it all seems very exciting. So I was getting very excited with these numbers going up, and some videos were hitting sort of 3,000 or 4,000 views, and that was all wonderful. But in reality, of course, that makes no money. In fact, I wasn't even monetized. I didn't even bother turning on monetization when I could, because if I did, I knew I'd be making $1 a month or something. So I didn't bother. So half of me was very excited that this thing was growing, and half of me understood that it wasn't growing to anything that could ever be anything of any value. And then when COVID kind of disappeared, or at least calmed down, and we were allowed to go back to work, I realized that I didn't want to go back to work. I'd done 25 years in financial services. I hated it from the day I started, but it paid very well, so I couldn't afford to leave it. But after 25 years, I realized I had the potential to sell my business and effectively retire. But then twiddle my thumbs. So my wife said, why don't you just do YouTube as a full-time job? Which seemed a bit ridiculous because we only had still then sort of maybe, I don't know, 50 or 60,000 subscribers. I mean, it was, and we turned on monetization by then, but it was only making, maybe a good month was $1,000 or something. But I thought, yeah, why not? I mean, basically the gamble was if I sell my business, I have enough money that I can get by for a few years before having to realize you're never going to be a YouTuber, do something else. So I thought I'll just take that gamble. So I did. So beginning of 2022, I thought I'll try and do that. And by the summer, I'd sold my business and had gone full time on YouTube. And that's kind of where we are now, really. And we are still very much. I mean, sometimes people say, "Hey, it must be wonderful. You must earn a fortune on YouTube." We are still very much in the space of hoping that it gets big enough to pay the bills properly before the money that we had from the sale of the business runs out. So we are not in making a fortune territory. We're not even really covering the bills. We are still hoping that it pans out. But it has clearly grown from whatever, my mum and 4 mates to now, a few 100,000 people and a couple of million views a month. And every now and again, a video pops off and does 1 or 2 million views, which is nice. And we've kind of got the hang of what we want to do with it. We know now how to make the videos that we like making. So it's it works the way we want it to work. It just needs to carry on growing the way it's been growing, ideally.
So, a lot to kind of break down there in that answer. I appreciate that detailed answer. That's amazing. I love hearing the journey from not knowing anything till now doing it full time. I absolutely love that. I want to ask you just briefly, you talked about you're watching Casey Neistat early on to try to get better at storytelling and telling stories. What did you learn in those early sessions of here's what I was doing and here's what's wrong about that and here's how to be a better storyteller? Because I do watch your videos now. I've watched the last 6 or 7, and you are a really good storyteller and you're a really good presenter. So what were some things that you've put into place to make sure that you are better at storytelling?
Actually, probably all I did was I just concentrated on telling stories. I mean, what was interesting was when I watched Casey Neistat, I suddenly realized that actually you could tell a story on, there were people on YouTube who actually appreciated, set up conflict resolution, a narrative arc. It wasn't just, whatever, kids and cats on pianos. There was more to it, or there could be if you wanted it to be. And I had a history or a background of always wanted to do something a bit more creative. So I tried to do some script writing for TV and stuff. I mean, funny enough, going back to Ricky Gervais, when Ricky Gervais got very big in the UK, which was around sort of 2000-ish, early 2000s, I remember thinking literally, oh, he's a 40-year-old bloke from Reading, and I'm a 30-year-old bloke from Reading, so maybe I can be as famous and rich as he is, but because I can do what he appears to be doing, was my kind of egotistical take on it. So I tried to do some script writing and stuff, unfortunately, I timed it very badly, and that just didn't work. I mean, but basically, what Ricky Gervais got quite lucky with, in a way, was that he'd thrown scripts at the BBC back in the late 90s when they were quite receptive to that. So we had a couple of things made for The Office that came off the back of that. By the time I tried to do that in sort of mid 2000s, that just wasn't happening. If you weren't a big name, nothing was coming of it. So that didn't work. So I ended up doing some stand-up comedy because somebody said to me, "I've read your script and it's very funny, but no one's going to make this. It's pointless. Go and do stand-up comedy. You're at least getting into, people will at least laugh at it. I mean, your scripts are just going to go in someone's drawer and never get read." So I done some stand-up comedy that didn't go very far. I mean, I did 6 months of it, got on TV, and then thought, well, that's the pinnacle of my career. So I quit. And so I had this kind of background of wanting to do storytelling, especially comedic storytelling. So when I saw Casey Neistat doing what he did, I thought, this is great. I can do that. The mistakes I made was that I also tried to be Casey Neistat. So, for example, my early videos had things like drone shots in them. Now there's a time and a place, and I use drones quite a bit, and I certainly used drones when I was in Africa, and that's valid. But what I was doing was just putting drones in everything because that's what Casey Neistat does, and that was stupid. That didn't work. It wasn't what I could do, and so I sort of had to kind of learn to take little bits from lots of people, but without kind of becoming derivative of what they are doing, and that was probably the biggest learning curve was sitting down and watching somebody, whether it's Casey Neistat or Mr. Beast or anybody in between, and thinking, okay, I like that, but that's theirs. I can't do that. Or I like that, and there's no reason why I can't do that myself. It was learning to pick and choose the bits I could take from people. The storytelling I'd always wanted to do and always could do, and I like the idea that somebody watches one of my videos and sticks around to the end because they want to see what happens, as opposed to standard YouTube fitness where there is no narrative arc. There's no point to carry on watching, other than you might simply be finding it entertaining. But there's no, I wonder where this is going to go. There's none of that typically. And there is normally for example, a Casey Neistat video, you're watching it because you want to see how the story concludes. So I already had that. It was learning how to pick and choose what other stuff I incorporated from other people without ending up being a clone of them.
So in your opening explanation of your channel and your journey, you mentioned what it seemed like 3 arcs so far in the channel, right? You were talking about your biking and then your travels, and then now kind of you landed on fitness. How important do you think it is on YouTube to niche down, and how important was it for you specifically to land in the fitness space? And now you've kind of found that place where, the great combination of you love doing it, you're passionate, and there's also people there in the space. So talk about those two things of just like how important it is to land on a niche and how far you should niche down, and then how important it was for you and your journey.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's annoyingly important. I say annoyingly because what I would love to do, and I'm not there yet, is to be able to leave my niche and have people just watch it anyway. And that's tricky because my niche is fitness, and it's only fitness because I was doing fitness. I'm no expert at all. I have no qualifications in fitness whatsoever. I have people contact me all the time saying, "Can you be my trainer?" And they're having a laugh. I've got no idea what I'm doing. So I'm not an expert. It was just me making content about what I was doing. I mean, really no difference. Casey Neistat is not an expert on New York. He was just making videos about New York because that's where he was. So that was kind of my thing. I was just in fitness, so I made videos about it, and that's obviously a great niche because it just works. The fitness world works, and also within that niche, most people are these kind of 25-year-old jacked kind of influencer types. There weren't many late 40s, previously out of shape, now in decent shape. I was a kind of a niche within a niche. So that was important. Well, what I've tried to do now, once I hit 300,000 subscribers, I've tried to occasionally branch out and do some, not leaving fitness behind, but for example, I made a video recently about my house move. And it's a big house move that we're moving to the countryside, and it's a big scary change. And I wanted to make a video about making big scary changes, but I knew that my audience were watching me for fitness, so I basically made the story while cycling my bike around. I rode my bike to all the previous houses I'd lived in locally around Reading while telling the story about how scary it was to move away. So I figured that people would watch and go, "Oh, this is Mark on his bike." I'm familiar with what I'm seeing, and then at the end of it, think, "Hey, I that was something that I didn't expect," and that actually worked quite well. So the niche is important. What I'm at now is the place where I want to sort of expand beyond the niche, because there's more to life than just running and cycling, and that's hard. And what I'd love to do is, we have over here Jeremy Clarkson, who you guys probably know from Top Gear.
Mhm.
So Jeremy Clarkson's obviously a car guy. His massive TV show at the moment is Clarkson's Farm, because the bloke went off and bought a farm, and everyone just now loves watching him playing with sheep and pigs. In an ideal world, I would love to be popular enough that I could make content about pretty much anything. In the way that, Casey Neistat's a good example. He could make a video on anything, and people would just watch it because it's his video. So, to answer your question, the niche thing is important. To at least establish yourself. I also think just for your own creative sort of well-being, to expand beyond your niche at some point is also important. Otherwise, I would have thought you'd just go mad if you just made content about the same topic for 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 years. You go around the bend. So important initially, and I'm now at the place of trying to discover how to expand beyond it.
So it's interesting. There's a threshold, right, where you get so popular that the niche and the topic doesn't matter. It's they're coming for you as opposed to the topic. Now, obviously, people are coming to watch you do the fitness stuff because they're interested in you and not the other influencers, or maybe they're middle-aged men and they're not younger and they're not kind of the meatheads that we see in the fitness. I think that's what really stood out about your channel is that I had a pilot on here 2 or 3 months ago, and there's a ton of pilots that are on YouTube documenting their journey, but his unique tale was that he was over 50. He got his pilot's license in just over a year, and he did it very inexpensively. So he took all of these buzzwords and hot words, and he's really grown a channel. But the difficulty in that is that now, if he wanted to, like what you're talking about, talk about motorcycles or cars or be a gearhead, right, as opposed to a meathead, right, then it'd be hard for people to kind of transition that audience over, right? That's what the hard thing is when people start covering one particular, say, video game or topic on YouTube. They get stuck in that unless they can go and rise above that, like Casey Neistat or Peter McKinnon, or even, there's other creators who are so big now, like Dude Perfect did this. They were trick shots. And then,
absolutely.
And then what they did after that was they eventually said, we cannot do trick shots for the rest of our lives. Number one, we're going to get old. And number two, there's just only a certain amount of audience here. But what they then did is they started doing these videos where they would do like stereotype videos of certain topics. And now they're doing game shows, they're hosting live events, and you kind of know what the story there is. So being able to bust out of that is hard. And also, I think in closing of this topic, YouTube makes this very hard. YouTube doesn't lend itself for you to be just the creator, and then you get to kind of do whatever you want. I guarantee you, I work with a lot of clients. I had a guy who is a trainer in gun stuff. Like he does like marksmanship and things like that. Will, if you're listening, hope you're having a good day, my friend. And he did a couple of videos around Christmas about like Christmas stuff. And those videos tanked. I mean, they just plummeted compared to what he did. And it ended up hurting his future videos, and he had to kind of climb out of that hole. So I tell people all the time, when you niche down, you better like what you're doing, because oftentimes you're stuck there. And you did such a really good job explaining that.
I mean, it's interesting actually, because what I did as an example, I've got behind me my motorbike, which is a GPZ 900R, which is the motorbike from Top Gun, the first Top Gun. When I bought it, it was a lifelong dream to own that bike since I saw Top Gun as a teenager, and I wanted to make a video about my purchase of it, but I knew that my fitness audience do not care about my motorbike. So I ended up making the video, but I then had to basically structure it around this sort of narrative tale about how you kind of set goals and you work towards them and achieve them. And I related it to fitness as well, so that people could watch it and not care about bikes, but still find the message. I mean, it's a little bit like what a lot of American TV shows do. There'll be the kind of the A plot of the drama, but it also mirrors a sort of a subplot as an analogy for that. So I that's where I'm at the moment. When I think I'd love to make a video about X, but it isn't fitness, then I put my hat on and think, okay, thinking hat, how do I take my audience with me? Also, the niching down too narrow is an interesting one, because in our fitness world, we have at the moment, I think, called High Rocks, which is a bit like CrossFit, a huge number of people popping up on YouTube, and they're calling themselves, High Rocks Billy or something. And you think, wow, talk about niching down. I mean, you're just now, it's a bit like reviewing just one game as a video game guy, because you are literally in that rut. If that sport has a ceiling of people, a number of people that are going to be into it, and beyond that, you're just stuck. One of the reasons I called the channel Mark Lewis was that I did think, even on day one, I don't want to be Mark Lewis Fitness, because what if one day I don't want to make content about fitness because I'm 80 and I'm still on YouTube? So even on day one, I was acutely aware that it had to just be me.
Yeah.
The way Casey Neistat is just Casey Neistat. And then allow myself to broaden out. But it is tricky to do that.
I spoke with a person early on who was kind of trying to convince me about 9 or 10 years ago that I should make my YouTube channel all about YouTube tutorials. And I'm so glad that I didn't listen to them. And my channel is a little bit of a blue heron in that I understand it's unique and it's different. I just cover tutorials for any technology software. And I know for a fact I could grow my channel subscriber-wise to way larger than the 400 some odd thousand subscribers that I have now, if I would be willing to cover a specific software, like just not software or service like YouTube, or do graphic art or something specific where the community will continue to go around. As it is now, people watch one of my videos showing them how to live stream using a specific software, and they're like, oh, great, he helped me out. I hit the like button, and they're not going to subscribe. Now, I really could care less about subscribers, and I care more about the total overall video views. And the average video views on my channel every day is anywhere from 50 to 75,000 a day, which I'm good with that, and I continue want to grow that as I continue to release new videos. So understanding how to niche down and what's good for you and best suited for you is something that you'll probably need to do in your strategy sessions when you sit down and think about your YouTube channel. I want to ask you this, Mark. What is something you wish you would have known sooner? Now that you're in this thing and you're a few years, a couple of years full time, a bunch of years doing it, what is something you're like, man, I wish I would have known that sooner?
Actually, there's not a lot. I'm almost the reverse of that, in that I started. I have a philosophy, and it applies to anything I do, and I'm quite privileged to be able to do it this way, but it's still what I do. I like to start as I mean to go on. So if I'm going to start something, I will research the heck out of it so that I hit the ground running, whether that's buying the right gear or just understanding that the world I'm going into fully before I do it. And when I do that, people then say, "Oh, you're an idiot. You whatever. You're taking up triathlon. You've gone and bought a carbon fiber super bike on day one." Yes, because I want to be really fast and good at it one day, and that will be the bike that will be great then. So I did that with YouTube. I started with great gear. I mean, not the gear that I have today, but I still had decent gear. So my videos have always been reasonably good. I mean, one of the great things I benefit from is that when new subscribers join, they go back through my old catalog of work, and hopefully they can find content that's almost comparable, and in some cases is absolutely comparable to content I'm producing today. It's not that they go back and find, I mean, Mr. Beast is actually a good example, because if you go back on Mr. Beast content, 10 years, you're going to find a teenage kid, counting out, numbers and stuff. And if you're there for the multi-million-pound production value of his current stuff, you're going to think, well, this is not what I'm wanting. My content on day one was pretty much, my 2 videos that go around Africa. If I made those today, I'd be happy with them. So I almost don't have any kind of regrets. I started it the way I wanted it to go. I suppose the only thing that's I might have done slightly differently. I still don't know if I would have done it differently. I took quite a strong stance on sponsorship and brand deals and stuff, which is basically I didn't want to do it. Um, and and I'm now almost at the point where I'm kind of thinking, oh my goodness, we're losing so much money. If you can't beat them, join them. I'm not still entirely sure that I'm going to do that, but I would have probably given more thought to it before just kind of doubling down on my initial stance, which was no, screw brand deals. Um, that's the only thing. In terms of how creatively, I'm pretty happy. If I had to go back and do it again, I don't think I'd make many changes really.
So it's a perfect transition then into my next question, which we're going to talk about monetization. And I've over the past year or so, I call them monetization buckets and how you're making money as a creator. If you would, Mark, let the listeners know what a channel like yours makes. 320 some odd thousand subscribers, not just yet at 500 videos. And you mentioned a very important thing in this interview is that you mentioned that, hey, even though we are where we are not completely in the green. We're not covering all the bills. If this thing, the money runs out, you'll have to kind of figure out what you're going to do. So break down the ways that you make money, and then we'll talk about your stance on kind of partnerships and why I believe that you're kind of really cutting yourself short. Because as a YouTube coach, I just know that a channel like yours, averaging almost 100,000 views per video, I mean, you could be paying the bills and some if you were willing to do the sponsored videos. So talk about what you're doing currently, and then we'll go from there.
Yeah, well, I will do, and also I'll explain. Yeah, as we go, I'll explain why what I do works for me in a way that it might not work for others. So, in terms of numbers at the moment, we make from ad revenue on YouTube, we make somewhere between. I mean, a bad month will be $5,000. Yeah, if we drop below $5,000, that's because we've taken too much time off, or our videos have been crappy. So $5,000 is bad. 8, 9. I think might have been a couple of times last year where we had great months and did maybe $10,000. So it'll be somewhere between 5 and 10. I mean, 6.5, 6.5, something like that. And so that's YouTube ad revenue. Our only other source of revenue is Patreon. So we started a Patreon channel. That makes a few $1,000s a month as well. But that also takes a bit of work. Our Patreon isn't just join and give me money for the heck of it. We do a weekly podcast over on there that is specific to them only. We have it's a very active community. Our Patreon. We put a lot of time into it, and that's it. There is no other money. And I know some people think, well, hang on a minute, you're getting $6,000 off of YouTube and 3 off of Patreon. You're making $9,000 a month. That's good money, and it would be good money if I was 19 and living in my mum's basement. But I'm a grown man, 50, and I have a wife, and I have a lifestyle, whether it's whatever, house, holidays, all that stuff that I developed while working in financial services. So what I quit to do YouTube was very, very different to what I'm now making on YouTube. Now that's very, very particular to me. And so if you are 19 and living in your mum's basement, my problems aren't yours, and you'll do very well on $9,000 a month probably. For me, that it just doesn't work because it's me and my wife working full time. So straight away, $9,000 is 4.5 each. That's turnover, and obviously people think it's all money in your pocket. It's not, because if I have to buy expensive gear and go and spend money doing shoots and stuff, that's thousands of pounds of expenses. And then there's tax and so on and so on. And by the time it nets down to what's in my pocket and the amount of hours I put into it, which is full time and then some, I make a fraction, a very, very tiny fraction of what I was making a few years ago in financial services. And the only way I could pay the bills on YouTube, if YouTube was my only money, I didn't have savings from my business sale, I would have to drastically reduce my expenditure. And we haven't done that. We've actually gone and spent all of our money on this new house. So we are, which is why it's quite a scary move. We do need our YouTube revenue to go up. And the most obvious way of doing that is to do brand deals and so on. And the way we're going to do that, actually, did you want to? Maybe I should leave it there. I mean, because you might have a question about the brand deals.
Yeah,
because my stance on brand deals basically was that on day one, I looked at the fitness industry, which was full of people saying, drink this, take this supplement, do that, and I thought, well, hell, 95% of that is just rubbish.
Mm-hmm.
I don't want to get into this to shill for someone else. And I didn't do it. And I'm well aware of how much I could make because I get the offers. So I know how much money I could make. Our plan is when we move house to our new house in the countryside, my wife Jenna is going to start her own YouTube channel, which will basically be her working on this house. We have 10 acres of land, and she's going to be, I don't know, whatever, feeding her alpacas and stuff. I mean, it's going to be that kind of, to stereotype it slightly and kind of niche down. It's going to be the kind of cliched, whatever, girl in yoga pants, digging a hole to make a hot tub in the middle of a field. And so it appeals to everyone that likes girls in hot pants working outdoors, and also people that are genuinely interested in how you divert a stream into a pond to make a hot tub that's remote. I mean, it's going to be that kind of off-grid girl doing her own thing kind of niche, and that does work well on YouTube.
It does.
And on that, if that takes off, she'll do every brand deal going. So anybody out there that says, "Hey, we make power tools," yeah, well then send us my wife, because she'll wave anything around made by someone else for money, and hopefully it will allow me to carry on with my stupidly costly to me moral high ground nonsense of not doing brand deals. Which probably makes someone like you think, what an idiot.
No, I certainly don't think what an idiot, because I think everybody has their right to do and have their stances, and I certainly have my stances as well. I would say that I agree with you 95% of the time that a lot of what's promoted, especially in the fitness space, being someone like myself who I'm not as into fitness as it seems like you are. I don't have a YouTube channel about it, but I certainly love to stay in shape. I love going to the gym. I love walking and running and the cardio side of it. And so I do consume fitness content. And so with that being the case, a lot of times it's just snake oil salesmen, which is what we call them here in the South, right? Is they're just selling snake oil. Like it's just all a bunch of hogwash, and it's just nothing real to it. But I do believe that if you sift through it and you're willing to put in the time and effort, you can find those companies that they're not snake oil. They're good companies willing to pay you really good money, and you can utilize them and implement the ads in your videos in a way that's not going to be intrusive, it's not going to be dishonest, and it's going to be something that you actually use. And if I'm ever a creator like you and I'm in the fitness space, I just look at the things that I use every day, whether it be that nice new bike that I bought or whatever it is, and I reach out to those companies. And I'll never forget, I bought a Peloton, and I reached out to them and I said, "Hey, I have, almost 400,000 subscribers. I cover technology. I'd love to do a review of the software and cover how to do stuff on my channel." They were like, "We'll send you a bike. We'll give you your first year free membership." There's things like that if you're already going to be using the stuff, it makes sense to go ahead and do the sponsorship deals. But man, I completely understand being in the tech space. I cannot tell you, I'm not going to expose numbers here on this podcast. I have been presented with AI companies who are wanting to come on this podcast or have me do a video. We're talking 5 figures for just a couple videos or a couple, and I refuse. And my wife thinks I'm crazy. I tell her these numbers because I'm honest with her, and I'm like, yeah, I just turned down like 10 grand, because this AI company wanted to be a part of my. But the thing is, I don't believe in it. I don't believe in what they're doing. I think but there are a couple of AI companies that now that the years have gone on, I'm starting to partner with because I believe in them and I use them. That's the number one key, is I use them. So I'll let you kind of respond to all that.
Well, yeah, and it's tricky because we've gone through a kind of a cycle of stances on this, or at least beliefs on this, but the stance has remained the same, which is don't do it. So basically, when you're a new YouTuber, you believe that just getting any sort of brand deal, sponsorship deal is the holy grail. I mean, that's, I'm a member of some new YouTuber forums and stuff, and people just regard getting brand deals as just being the thing. And the fitness world is even worse for that. I mean, you have people nowadays. When I was a kid, everyone wanted to be a train driver or astronaut or something. Now you've got kids that just want to be ambassadors for gym clothing companies. I mean, just talk about, setting a glass ceiling for yourself. I do not understand that attitude. So the fitness world is terrible for that. It's also terrible for people that are jacked and on steroids and doing all sorts of stuff, or just genetically predisposed to looking exactly the way they look, whatever they take, saying, take this protein powder and you'll look like me. And it's, as you say, it's snake oil. So it's a terrible industry for it. The problem I had on day one was that, or not so much day one, but once we started to get a bit of a following, is that all the kind of usual suspects got in touch, and it's companies that I know the product is junk, even though they may be massive. When I watch some fitness YouTubers with monstrous numbers behind their channels, still promoting stuff that is just, I mean, it might as well be branded snake oil. So it's not as though they are only dealing with small YouTubers; they're dealing with massive ones. But I wanted none of that.
Yeah,
we've now got to a place where we are at the point, as you described, where we can, for example, the house we're moving to, it's got a big barn, 500-year-old barn. So we've said to a couple of companies, we're going to kit this place out with a gym. If you want your gear to be the gear in our gym, it'd be amazing to work with you. We're not going to do brand deals in a traditional sense. We're not going to, you're not going to give us a squat rack in return for us saying X, Y, Z. But if you want the squat rack that we are using in our barn to be yours, absolutely talk to us and we can do that. So we do that. We do take products that we are going to buy anyway, because if all of those companies said to us no, we'd have to buy it anyway. So we'll do that. And a lot of the gear that we use actually is stuff that I would have bought, but I go to a company and I say, look, I'm going to buy it whether you let me have it or not. But if you let me have it, then we're going to make sure it does pop up in videos a bit more obviously than otherwise. But do not tell us what to say. Do not give us any money. There's no official relationship in that sense. So we do that. What we're now encountering is a couple of companies where I would use their gear anyway. And a good example of this actually is a headset, earphones for jogging and listening to music. It's a company that I have had their gear before. They have a new product coming out and they contacted me and said, hey, we got this new. I said, yeah, I've seen it's coming out. I'm going to buy it. I'm going to buy it anyway. They said, well, don't buy it. We'll send it to you. Yeah. By the way, talk about it for 60 seconds in your next video and we'll give you $5,000. At which point it does become, and like you say, people say, why you turn down that money? It is an interesting place now because $5,000 is or any amount of money is over a few $100s is significant when the average YouTube video doesn't make anywhere like $5,000. And you're going to buy it anyway. Yeah, I'd probably have spoken about the headset anyway. So we are now in an interesting place where we are big enough now to get really good companies interested in giving us serious amounts of money to basically do what I would be doing anyway, at which point I'm starting to think I'm an idiot. So we're in an interesting place, a very interesting place. And absolutely, when my wife starts her channel, I mean, cross fingers it does well, we will have no qualms about sponsorship. I've watched enough podcasters and YouTubers with millions and millions and millions of subscribers pausing their content for 2 minutes to talk about where they get their shirts or something, to realize that it's a bit nuts to be worrying about paying the mortgage when guys with whatever £5 million mansions are not doing it that way.
Yeah, it's certainly something that is in your horizon. I think that using him as the opportunity to promote things that you already use and that you're already trusted, and why not get that money to where you can keep making the content. So I'm excited about your wife's channel. I think she'll certainly do well, and having a history of learning and doing it with you. I know you feature her in some of your videos as well, so she already has that experience. So I love that. The last question that I want to ask you is this: what's next for you in the channel? You've already mentioned about kind of what your wife's doing. You're moving to a new place. But what's next for you and the channel itself, like short term and long term? What are you looking to do?
Well, it's really that. I mean, the idea is to move to this place in the countryside and for my channel to carry on being what it always was, which was really me at 50 now, trying to be fit and healthy, but not taking it to the extremes that some on social media suggest you need to do, because I don't take it to extremes. I keep it relatable, hopefully. So it's going to be me doing that, but in a more rural environment than I do at the moment. So instead of going to the gym, I'll be going to my 500-year-old barn and doing a workout there. And when I go on my bike rides, it'll be in the middle of nowhere and so on. So it's basically going to be me doing the same thing, but somewhere different. And the focus, I mean, and really, to be honest, if my channel never got more than, I mean, naturally it's going to progress in numbers, but if it never really got more than 400,000 or 500,000 and plodded along, but my wife's channel in conjunction kind of filled in the gap, we'd be very happy with that. So the short-term plan is going to be very much to use my channel doing what it does to cross-promote her channel to get it off the ground. That's the focus. So and a good example of that is going to be me talking about stuff like cold plunging, which is a big thing in YouTube fitness, cold plunging. But it's normally some bloke in a plastic cold plunge in his garden, in a housing estate. My cold plunge is going to be literally built into the side of my stream in my wilderness retreat, which will hopefully be a more interesting way to do a cold plunge. And at the same time, it will basically be me saying, hey, if you want to see how this cold plunge got built, go watch my wife's channel because she built it.
Yeah, that's awesome.
It's her and a digger. So basically, people will be able to see me doing fitness content. And if they want to know the background behind how on earth I managed to get that done there, or how did I convert that gym in from that barn, we'll then go watch her channel because that's where the conversion took place.
That's right.
So that's the plan. And if in an ideal world, we have a couple of channels with 300,000 or 400,000 subscribers each, and then suddenly all the numbers make sense, and we can carry on doing that forever. My channel doesn't require me to be a particular age or anything it's just me at my age doing whatever I can do to stay in shape. And that will continue. At the moment, there aren't many people watching YouTube in their 80s, but the hope is that when I'm 80, 30 years time, there will be, because there'll be the people that grew up with YouTube.
That's right.
So I can just plod on as I am.
There will be, because these people that are growing up are going to be used to it. The people who are 80 now were not, right? So it's all about generations and kind of how they're consuming their media. So I love that. Again, I'll have all of his links down below. It's Mark Lewis on YouTube, MarkLewis, Mark Lewis Fitness. You can find him by typing in both of those over on YouTube. Check out what he has going on. Mark, thank you so much for coming on the podcast today. You've been such a great guest, and we'll talk to you next time.
Thank you.